This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, so we know that the 15th day of Av is a day of Simcha, day of happiness for Klal Yisrael. In fact, the Gemara says at the end of Tainis, Lo hayu yamim tovim liYisrael ke Hamisha Asar B'Av Yom HaKippurim. What exactly was the Simcha of Tu B'Av? There are many opinions given in the Gemara, but one very well-known one, Amar Rav Shimon Gamliel. What happened? Says the Gemara, Kalu Meisei Midbar. Those who were supposed to die in the Midbar because of Chid HaMeraglim, they stopped dying, right? We know every Tisha B'Av, Jewish people were commanded to dig their own graves, and they lay down, and in the morning a voice cried out, right? Hibadlu Hachayim and Amesim, and how many Jews died every year?
140.
15,000 Jews. So what's 40 times 15,000? 600,000. But we come the final year, and there are 15,000 Jews left, and their prognosis was not good. The year before, at least they had 50-50. Every Jew who dug their own grave the year before, it was 50-50. This year, you're basically...
What says 50-50?
50 you wake up in the morning, 50 you don't wake up in the morning. Because there are 30,000, 15,000 are not going to make it.
That's what they have per person.
Yeah. Well, what does it mean, Kalu Meisei Midbar? Operish Rashbam, Sham, Shakalu B'I Meisei Midbar, B'Medrash Eicha, Yom Shabbato B'Al HaChefer. The day they stopped the digging, the Amar of Levi, called Erev Tisha B'Av, Hayakruz Yotzei. Erev Tisha B'Av, a proclamation went out, Hakol Yatsu Lichbar Chafir, and everyone go out to dig ditches. Ve'yishnin B'Hayin, and go to sleep in them. Uveshachris Hakruz Yotzei, Yibadlu Hachayim Min Hamesim, V'Hayu Boitkin Oisan. And they would check, V'Nimtzu Tesvav Elef, 15,000 died. And they did this for 40 years, every day, every Tisha B'Av, 40 years. What did they do the last year? They checked themselves. They woke up in the morning, they smacked themselves, they sprinkled some cold water, they pinched themselves. They were up, they were still there. So what did they do? They figured it must be a mistake, it must not have been Tisha B'Av. The calendars must have been off. It must have been, the Chacham must have paskin wrong about the month. It must be a day off, so they went back to sleep there the next night. And the next night. And then the next night. Until they saw it was a full moon. They realized half month has passed, and they realized the Gzeira was batal. And Toisus over there on the page asks, Zmarach, from different psukim, and Toisus says as following, V'nirol Rabbeinu Tam, and by the way, this comes from the Sefer, Darash Mordechai, from Rabbi Mordechai Druk, who we quoted on Erev Tisha B'Av. Toisus says as follows: it's not that they sort of all died before the 40th year. Ela b'shana achroina, the Gzeira was batal, and there were 15,000 Jews, and then Toisus says the following: that really they should have died in the final year. Except, what happened? The same way Chizkiah was supposed to die when who came to him? Yeshaya Hanavi came, he said, "You're a dead man." And Chizkiah said, "Why am I a dead man?" And Yeshaya said, "Because you don't want to get married." So Chizkiah said, "Yeah, that's because I see b'nevuah that I'm going to have a rasha like Menashe." So what did Yeshaya tell him? Hade kavsha derachmana lamalach. What are you meddling around in the affairs of heaven? You get married like you're supposed to, and God will worry about how your children will come out. So Chizkiah says, "Yeah, really? So you're such a big talker? I'll marry your daughter." And Chizkiah married Yeshaya's daughter, and sure enough, they had Menashe.
Sure enough?
They had Menashe. But the question is, Yeshaya told him, "You're a dead man. It's a Gezeira that cannot be rescinded." What does it mean? What does Tosfos mean? Kamoisha matzinu v'Chizkiah dechsiv tzav lebeischa k'mois ata. And then Tosfos is marach, and Tosfos says, nobody was left, Kiyim Kalev ben Yefuna, and Yeshua ben Nun. What do you mean nobody was left? There were 15,000 other Jews who were left. And Tosfos says, no, nobody was left from those who were supposed to die before the 40th year. So now the big question is, isn't it strange? In year 1, now one person survived. In year 2, now one person survived. In year 3, now one person survived. In year 4, nobody survived. And all of a sudden, the coincidence, the last year, they all survived? How's that possible?
People did survive the first 39.
15,000? No, of the 15,000 that were supposed to die that year, there were no survivors, right? In other words, whoever the Gezerah was on, nobody survived. How's it shaykh? I mean, like, Dafka, the last 15,000 happened to have been the biggest tzaddikim? How's that? Like, that's a pretty phenomenal coincidence. That of the first year, the 15,000 supposed to die, nobody survived. And the last year, the 15,000 people supposed to survive, they all survived? I mean, like, flip a coin, that ain't happening ever. And what does it have to do with Chizkiah HaMelech? So Rav Druk says like this, and this is a big yisoid in Tefillah. How was Chizkiyahu mevatel l'gzeira on him? He davened to Hashem. It says Chizkiyahu went to the wall, and he poured out his heart, and he davened. Why do you think his tefillah was so powerful? Because he knew there was no way out. The Navi told him, you are a dead man. If the Navi would have told him, 50-50, so then Chizkiyahu would have davened, Hashem, just in case I'm not going to live, please help me. And then guess what? There's no way he would have been listened to, because that's not a fully genuine tefillah. And what if the Navi would have come to him and said, hey Chizkiah, 99% you're going to live, you're going to die. Then, even though Chizkiah probably would have davened very well, but nevertheless, he still would have clung on to a 1% degree of hope that maybe, I'm gonna make it through. But when the Navi said, "You're a dead man," he realizes, "Ein lo yami lishain el avinu shebashamayim." That tefillah is going to be with every nook and cranny of his heart. So it says Rav Druk, the same thing with Klal Yisrael in the Midbar. The first year, nobody knew who was going to die and who was going to live. So they said, look, chances are good we're going to make it through. And year 20, they said, look, 50-50 we're going to make it through. And even year 39, they probably davened. It was probably a nerve-wracking situation, but it would be impossible to muster every last fiber of their being. But in that 40th year, when those 15,000 people lay down to go to sleep that night, knowing with absolute certainty that they have no shot at making it through, their tefillah was kol imkei levavim, with every ounce of their heart, with every nook and cranny of their heart. And that is why their tefillah was so successful, and that is the analogy Tosfos makes to Chizkiah HaMelech. In other words, the same way Chizkiah HaMelech was mevatel l'gzeira. Why? Because he knew there's no way out, there's no way to get around it. In that way, the last 15,000 Jews in the Midbar, they realized that they were up against the wall. There was nobody to rely on, and that is one of the limudim we learn from Tu B'Av. Rabbi, have a great day.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.